Today a racist man who used to torment me as a kid came into my business to ask for a job. What was the longest you've waited for karma to kick in? I played football my freshman year of high school. I went to a 90% black school that was a lot like high school high with John Lovitz. I was in the baccalaureate program with all the other AP kids, nerds. I am a nerd myself. But seeing as I played sports my whole life, I wasn't as awkward as the many super nerds around me. This actually got me picked on and outcast by the nerds I was trying so hard to be friends with. Meanwhile, out on the football field I'd taken my lumps as the only white guy, and white boy turned from a disrespectful name to my earned nickname. One day, after school, my nerd friends lied to me about a ride home, missed my bus, and filled the car up before I could get in. Then they all laughed at me as I walked away feeling horrible. If the nerds were mean to me, I was screwed. Right about that time, one of the guys on my team that also lived on my street called me over and asked if I needed a ride home. I said fuck yeah. I hopped in his candy orange box Chevy on 22S with the system bumping. They even had a blunt going. And as a white boy, I might as well been hanging out with some real gangsters. We slow rolled out of the parking lot, smoking a blunt, and watched as the super nerds tried to get their car started. They never did, and apparently were stranded at school for over an hour. One of the sweetest moments of my life. When I was 12 my dad left my mom and 3 kids. Left the country. No word and no dime. My mom raised us on just over minimum wage. But nope. Not about him. Dad's outcome story is even better. Close bracket. Wearing the same clothes from age 12-15 I quick went from being a regular kid to the poor kid. Add on fact that I communicated with my dad via email at school in Swedish and addressing him as Papa. Led to 4 years of horrible treatment in middle school. Some days at lunch I only had some carrots. Some douche named Sean called me Carrot Kid. And for the next 3 years that became my name. I was also skinny as all hell and easily picked on. Fast forward to sophomore year of college. I got a full ride, academic scholarship, and while in school I worked full time as a software developer. Making bank, and 3 years in the gym had put on 50 pounds of muscle. I bought a new Eclipse, 2005, and installed Lambo doors myself. I was picking up my girlfriend for our 1-year anniversary wearing my nice suit. I stopped by the grocery store to pick up some flowers. As I walk up to my car and swing open the door I hear the word Alex behind me. I turn around and there is Sean. Pushing carts. I look him up and down slowly. Snicker and say hi Sean. He stared. Jaw dropped. And dropped the little remote for the cart pusher. I turn around and drive off. Some people might feel bad about some horrible thing that happened to their abuser harasser. Karma is a bitch. I moved out of state when I was about 17. I still go back to visit my few close friends from elementary school. On my most recent visit we went to a bar where some of the cool kids were hanging out. To my surprise, the cool guys were all fat and partially balding. I walked by looking sexy as fuck with all the smugness I could muster as they watched. So many of those kids used to torment me all day at school and surround me at my locker at the end of the day, telling me how short and ugly I was. Well, ugly ducklings grow into sexy fucking swans. Bitches. Sorry I'm late. Guys. A couple of years ago I ended a horrible relationship with an emotionally abusive serial cheater. For 2 years I helped support him. Put up with his inability to keep an erection. And a whole mess of other shit. 3 days later, his best friend and girlfriend break up. I move home. He moves into his ex-best friend's girlfriend's bed. About a year later I learned that he knocked her up. On its own this was sweet. He was so terrified of having a baby he refused to have sex several times after I missed a period. I have cystic ovaries. This happened frequently, and broke up with her when he found out. But he didn't move out. She was going to school and holding 2 jobs. He quit his single job after we broke up. After she miscarried he moved back in with his mother. Edited to add that he also has gotten really fat. When I was little I was bullied a lot because you see I was a normal height slightly overweight Arab kid with a prosthetic leg. Now I was called sand anger, ugly, pimple faced, cripple, all of these horrible things. Some kids I wanted to fight but I could not bring myself to do it because I was taught to not fight unless you're defending yourself. Once on the bus a kid spat on me and I was so angry I smacked him on the head and he began to pull his eyes out, so I said sorry and apologized over and over till he punched me in the head and unfortunately I did nothing. Then one of my best friends found some better friends and proceeded to call me fat when they were around. Then one day in the locker room one kid called me a legless freak, which caused me to go and cry like I never had before. I always used to hear girls say how ugly I was too. Now fast forward to high school, I am 16, 6'1" and will be running a half marathon next year. I am still a little heavier than I would like but I look rather muscular. I still have acne but not as bad as before. I have wonderful friends and just 2 days ago I had a really pretty girl that worked at a clothing store hit on me. I am also very much into sports now, like wrestling, and I hope to become a police officer in the future. Now I am sorry if I rambled on. This is my first post on Reddit, but the thing is I believe that I am now succeeding because I never did wrong to others. Oh, and my childhood bullies? 2 are obese, another is a slut, and another is a criminal druggie. Anyways. God, it feels good to get that off my chest. I think that the day-to-day reminders that I got out of my small ass southern town and moved on to bigger and better things is enough karma in itself. I was the chubby, shy, mixed, half Indian, half white kid in my small town and never really shined in high school. After I graduated high school I grew 5 inches, dropped 70 pounds, got my bachelor's in engineering, and moved to a city. Facebook is a constant reminder of the fact that I conquered the small town mentality I was forced to live in for so many years. I don't talk to anyone from high school anymore, but I do have some on Facebook. Seeing them get fat, bald, have kids, shit jobs, and all over horrible lives makes me happy that I have the gusto to fight it out. I'm 23 now and have a beautiful apartment, smoking hot and smart, girlfriend, and an amazing job, aerospace engineer for an international engineering firm. Life's good. This girl in elementary school used to bully me. Then later I found out my best friend that I had just met had been bullied by her too. Fast forward 4 years when I'm a freshman in college. I suddenly get a link to a porn site by some classmates of mine. Turns out her and her fuck buddy took a video of themselves bumping uglies and someone found the tape and posted it online. It was blurry so I couldn't be too sure it was her by the face, but she had a few tattoos that I recognized from her Facebook page. I immediately sent the link off to my best friend. Oh, it was so satisfying. Back in 3rd grade, being the clueless tyke I was, I had zero dress sense. I always saw my dad wear his spandex bike shorts out on rides and thought that they were pretty fly. So, one day I put them on for school and my dear mother, bless her heart, thought it was so cute and let me do it. I remember this one kid, no name, no face, just that kid, who made fun of me for them. That did not sit well. But I wasn't thinking of revenge. I honestly wasn't thinking of much for than footy, soccer, back then. The next Saturday, when all the young kids had a football game with the dads, I saw this kid. Next time he had the ball and I was near him, I committed the most obvious and egregious foul I've committed. I put my leg through his 2 legs, ignoring the ball, and shoved him down. He started to cry and I had to apologize. Serves him right. Those shorts were fly. There was this guy back in elementary school. I don't remember much of what he did except he used to bully me and my best friend back in elementary school. We were small and, well, nerdy. He left just before we started high school. Fast forward to university, note, in a different continent, let alone country or city. A friend asked me to meet up for coffee at this place downtown where the barista is amazing. So we went to the place and just before we ordered a coffee my friend mentioned actually, the barista used to live in your country. Sure enough. One look was all it took to recognize that this barrister my friend was talking about was the guy who used to bully back over 10 years ago. I could have given him a hard time by being very specific with my orders and screaming about how bad the coffee was. It wasn't. But the sight of him serving me coffee was good enough for me. It still amazes me. Even though I've seen it happen a million times. What goes around truly comes around. My short story. My bully was one of those mind-fucking guys who picks on you 1 minute when there's an audience. Then pretends to be your best friend when you're alone with him. He'd do stuff like throw my book bag or hat out the bus window. Blindside push me into mud. Threaten to beat me up unless I apologized for something I didn't even do. He pretty much made each day hell. When he was sick and not in school. It felt like such a relief. After I got out of high school, I lost contact with him and put him out of my mind. About 20 years later I came back to my old stomping grounds to visit my mom. I don't read the newspaper. But by chance I picked it up and flipped through the local section. The paper was 3 days old but I was bored. My mouth suddenly dropped. Then grew to a soft grin. There he was in the crime section. Mugshot and all. Busted, again, for DWI. I can't put the feeling into words. Let's just say it felt friggin' fantastic. I had a good friend in high school with an older brother. The older brother was your run-of-the-mill douchebag older bro. He'd fuck with me as constantly. One day we were playing tackle football and I was getting the best of his older brother. A few plays I blew him away with jukes and whatnot. Well, one play where I wasn't even really involved, he just runs full speed and blindsides me. I saw blue and heard ringing for several minutes. I was fucking pissed when I got my wits about me and then all he had was more threats rather than apologies. He got into a diving accident trying to show off to his friends. They were seeing who could dive the furthest out from the diving board. He went the furthest alright. Right into the shallow end and broke his neck. Now he's in a wheelchair. I don't feel bad about it. Won't apologize because how he hit me that day. It could be me. When I was about 6 or 7 this guy used to make my life hell. Clearest memory I have of it was him sitting on my back and smashing my head into the concrete. I was quiet and bookish and this was enough to make him hate me. It went on for a long time. About 10 years later his mother, we'll call her Jenny, committed suicide and he really went off the rails. A while after that I was visiting my sick grandmother in hospital when I met him again. He was standing outside dressed in a hospital gown and smoking a cigarette. He asked why I was there and I told him. I asked what he was in for and with a small smile he told me he was in the psychiatric ward. We made small talk for another little while and then as I was walking away he called out to me. Pointing up at the sky he said, "Ask Jenny for help. She'll take care of your gran. She'll help you." I didn't really know what to say. I don't see him too often in real life but we're friends on Facebook now and we sometimes swap music links. He seems to be doing okay for himself and is enrolled in a college course he enjoys. Pain begets pain. Sometimes, not always. But sometimes, these bullies are pretty tormented themselves. My bitch of an English teacher in my 11th grade high school English class fucked my entire life over in some strange way. She basically accused me of plagiarizing a paper in class. Honest to God I did not do it. She called me a liar to my face. And ruined a lot of my life for a few good years. She reported the incident to the administration. And she tried to make them take legal action. But all I ended up getting was expulsion. My school took this stuff really seriously. In the long run, it basically caused me to lose 5 or 6 scholarships that I really needed for college. I ended up having to go to community college. Nothing wrong with it. But she basically killed any chances I had to become a doctor. Childhood dream. Spent all of high school prepping for it. I got most of my general stuff out of the way. And I have a great job now giving out loans at a bank. It pays well enough. But I don't live any grand life. And I am not a doctor. On top of that most of my friends made fun of me for years about it. 1 year after she accused me, her husband cheated on her. The year after I graduated, she got fired for being drunk on the job. About a month ago. The best thing ever happened. Guess who walked into the bank and asked for an extension on the loan she just recently took out to pay for her house? And guess who got the extension denied? Needless to say. Karma related or not. It was one of the highlights of my life. TL. DR. Bitch of a teacher messed up my chances at med school. She got cheated on. Fired. And now begged me to give her a loan for her house at the bank I work at. 2 quick stories. Guy 1. Thought he was a real big swinging dick. My daddy is rich, read as upper middle class, and that qualifies me to act like a complete d-bag to whomever I feel like. Particularly my group of friends. My friends and I were not terribly well off growing up and he let us know it publicly and often. Fast forward from HS to the past few years. He couldn't find a job out of grad. Enrolled in a shitty law school. Graduated. And still can't find a job. In addition, he went from being athletic looking with a full head of hair to looking rather George Costanza-esque. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure whenever I run into him at birthday parties and I get to hear him repeat how crappy his life is over and over to our mutual friends. TL. DR. Kid who called me poor all the time is now fat, ugly, and unemployed. Guy 2. This kid grew up in my neighborhood and used to constantly ostracize me from my group of friends by telling them lies about me or simply not inviting me over to his house when he had all of my friends over. Even though I would include him when I had people over. By high school he started doing hard drugs and by 20 he was sleeping at the local motel with 6 addicts in one room. In and out of rehab for a few years. On sober periods he would pump gas, in NJ, at one of the local stations. If I saw him working I would be sure to pull my car in to fill up and watch him pump my gas. He's clean now. But an alcoholic living at home with no job and no car at 25 years old. When I was in high school there was this girl I was friends with. But she was a huge bitch to me behind my back for no reason whatsoever. One time she even had the audacity to tell my boyfriend of 3 years that I was lucky to have him because I couldn't get anyone else, whereas she could have any boy she wanted. Including him. Now mind you that this all was said while she was going through this on again off again thing with one of my guy friends. Fast forward a few months and they seem to be broken up for good. He and I start hanging out again. She wouldn't let him hang out with me when they were dating for who knows what reason, and that boy is like begging to get with me. Which I found hilarious since she was sitting and crying over him and so damn mad that she couldn't get him back. Guess I can get boys. Ha bitch. Being a decent person and not wanting to stoop to her level, coupled with the fact I wasn't into the guy like that. I rejected him. He got mad and slept with her and bragged to me about it. I obviously didn't care. Now they're married. And of course he's now allowed to talk to me again. You're welcome you pricks. TL. DR friend said I couldn't get guys. Tried to come on to my boyfriend. The guy who dumped her tried to get with me. I rejected him. Now they're married. My brother used to always beat on me. And harass me as a child. He was 6 years older than me. This is a family feud. More or less. My brother would always pick on me as a kid. And would never let me do many things around the house. He had control of the computer. He had control of the Xbox. He was my mom's favorite. And could get away from everything. He used to bring his friends over. And tease me. And ask me questions that I had no idea the answers to. Because I was a little kid. Questions such as when was the last time you masturbated? And other embarrassing questions like that in front of all of his friends. Guys and girls. He would steal things from me. Like my Christmas presents. And say they were his. He would then sell them for drug money, mainly weed. And I'd never see them again. He used to blow up my Beanie Babies, don't ask. And then leave their charred and ripped remains in my room. For me to pick up. Recently, I'm 16. He's 22. And he still lives with me. My stepdad. And my mom. He harassed me to the point where I got up and told him to meet me outside in the front of our house. To fight. He followed me out the door. We started fighting. I'm bigger than him now. We have different fathers. I'm 6 feet 0. While he's somewhere between 5 feet 7 or 5 feet 8. And he was landing more punches on me because he was far more experienced at fighting than I. After getting bashed in the face for the 4th consecutive time, he laughed and said that I can't fight for shit. He let his guard down. And I took the opportunity to punch him as hard as I could in the stomach. He shit his pants. TLDR. My brother, who's 6 years older than me, harassed me as a child. I finally fought him when I got older and punched him so hard that he shit his pants. I'm late to the party so this may get buried. But here goes. When I was in the 7th grade, I was a pretty awkward child. I was overweight. Liked to read much more than the average 7th grader. And didn't exactly enjoy changing my clothes. My school being the nice one that it was, there weren't any bullies. Save one boy. This kid would laugh at me non-stop whenever he saw me for everything about me. From my body to my clothes to my books. And none of the other kids would stop him. The teachers would notice and say something. But no real action was ever taken. Fast forward 5 years. I am now going into my senior year of high school. I'm 6 feet 4 inches. Into sports. Have a girlfriend. And now change my clothes every day. I still read a shit ton though. The kid? He's now 5 feet 7 inches. Fat. And neglects to wash his hair. I don't laugh at him. But I certainly don't go out of my way to be nice to him either. 5 years may not be that long. But karma is indeed a bitch. TLDR. Kid made fun of me in middle school. 5 years later. Table has been successfully flipped. When I was a lot younger, I lived in a small town. And the people there were awfully shitty. I got picked on a lot. Especially since I didn't play hockey. Small town Canada. You either play hockey or you wish you were dead. Instead, I was in Ukrainian dancing. Which wasn't as bad as it sounds. There were 8 guys and 8 girls in my group. But they all picked on me. One guy in particular. He would make fun of me and call me a faggot and incite others to violence towards me. I hated that guy. And I will always hate him. A few years ago I heard that he came out of the closet. And a few months after that he got beaten severely, hospitalized, by some homophobes because he was gay. Now, I hate homophobia. I am all for gay rights and equality. But man, there is no one on earth more deserving and getting his ass kicked for a stupid reason than this fuck. I was one of the least popular kids in my high school by far. I was too nerdy for even the nerds to hang out with. I spent most of my time with the outcasts. I knew it was bad but I had a crush on a football player. Can you blame me? What nerd didn't? I decided for once to take charge and do something for myself. I asked him out. He laughed in my face and told me I was too ugly for anyone to ever date. Called me Crowface, which was a lovely nickname that caught on for a long time. Because of this, I had such awful self-esteem that well into my 20s. I still couldn't ask anyone out and even now still get too embarrassed sometimes. He ruined my self-esteem completely. After high school I began doing modeling gigs and cosplay events. I felt great and looked amazing. Not too long after these shoots started popping up online, he messaged me on Facebook telling me how gorgeous I looked and that he should have never said no to me at all. I then got to comedy explain to him the years of self-esteem issues I'd suffered from him and how I always pictured him humiliating me in front of our high school anytime I wanted to ask someone out. TLDR. Crush told me I was too ugly for anyone. Now I model and he's alone with a beer belly. I had a guy that used to pick on me for no reason in high school. He was a bit bigger, older, and was a wrestler. We tussled once when I had had enough of his shit, but it got broke up by teachers before it got too far. The guy just didn't like me and was relentless. Honestly, he scared me. When I was 37, I got divorced and took up Muay Thai. Over the course of the next 2 years I got myself into ridiculously good shape. I was 5 feet 11 and 190 pounds of hard muscle with lots of martial skills. I rented a house I owned to a single mom with the same last name as the dude that tormented me. A couple of months later I was visiting her to take care of a few maintenance issues at the house. And I walked up to the door. And he opened it. I stared at him for a full minute. He was much smaller than I remembered. In fact, he was struggling with heroin and the look on his face was priceless. It was his sister that had rented from me. Well, he recognized me. Knew immediately that I could easily wipe my ass with him. You could tell the look of fear. At least I could. Because that dude used to scare the shit out of me all the time. He meekly held out his hand. I took it. Almost crushed it. Then just gave him a big bear hug and a little nudgie. It was a guy's way of letting him off the hook. I think he would have rather had his ass beat. Sometimes. The best revenge is just landing on your feet. This didn't happen to me, but it happened to my uncle and I still think it's fucking hilarious every time I hear it. My uncle is a really smart guy. The kind of kid that doesn't have to try in school at all. Unfortunately. This made this one other kid. Let's call him Bob. See, my uncle is a target for bullying. So he got bullied from basically 6th through high school. However, they parted ways and he went to UCLA and later UCLA Med School. Fast forward 30 something years. My uncle's now 50 and so is his bully. He's living in the Bay Area when what do you know, but his high school bully was the one he was seeing that day. I was told that they both recognized each other, but the bully kind of blew it off and kind of acted like they were old chums in middle school or high school. Anyways, Bob came in because he had a little lump on his ballsack, and after an examination my uncle, did I mention he's an oncologist? Gets to tell him that he has testicular cancer. Bob apparently reacts by getting angry and saying that he's lying because of all the bullying. Uncle tells him it's for real. Bob gets a second opinion. Second opinion says same thing. Bad luck, Bob. To this day my uncle is still kind of ashamed of himself for finding so much joy in telling him the news. TL. Doctor, my uncle was bullied and eventually became a doctor and got to tell his high school bully that he had testicular cancer. I have a very similar story. A girl used to bully me and my brother in elementary and middle school. I hated her. Well, time has passed and I now co-own a fairly successful, up-and-coming restaurant, cafe, wine bar. About this time last year, this same girl comes into my place after about 10 years of not seeing each other. Recognizes me. Strikes up a friendly conversation. It seemed she had forgotten all about the torment. But I hadn't. She then tells me that she has fallen on hard times and needs a job. Nope. In retrospect though, I should have hired and made her life a living hell. But whatever. Seeing her face when I said no was incredible. That's what you get for spreading that rumor that me and my twin brother were in an incestuous relationship. Bitch. I was very nearly the recipient of a massive beating due to some delayed karma. Back in 4th grade I just started at a new school and was scrambling to make friends as soon as possible. To do this I took the path of least resistance. I tormented this poor kid who had no friends and was already being picked on. It was a very shameful decision. But it did get me into the clique. I would spend hours alternating between calling him Turkey Burke and Slowy Lowy. Fast forward 12 years later. I'm at a party and I see the kid. Only he is less of a kid now. And more of a Mr. Universe contestant. I had grown up substantially by then and decided an apology was in order. I beelined it across the room. Straight to him. I introduced myself and offered an apology and put my hand out for a handshake of ashamed regret. He stood staring at me for what felt like 15 seconds. He finally took my hand. He enveloped my entire hand. With assured firmness. The guy could have broken my hand without meaning to. Kids can be cunts. Man. I really appreciate your words. Double quote. Whoa. He actually was a really cool guy. Later that night me and a mate were walking home from the party when we were jumped by 4 guys. They started laying into us. My mate ran. 2 followed him. The other 2 were on top of me. I was doing my best at protecting my face and ribs while they sunk the boots in. Then they stopped. Burke had come out of nowhere. From behind he smashed both their heads together and started plowing into them. They ran. He laughed when I made a remark on how lucky I was to apologize in time. TL. Dr. High school bully gets saved by timely apologizing to the poor kid he tormented. I'm a stout guy and I can fight. And nobody messed with me in school. I never messed with anybody else either. However, I took classes for part of the day at another school in downtown Indianapolis. And for some reason, one guy there wanted to start trouble. He and his wannabe gangster friends would mess with me, hang out by my car, etc. Trying to get me to fight. I wasn't interested in a 1-on-5 fight. Or any fight really. Since I was graduating in a few months. I just ignored the guy. Told him to fuck off and it wasn't going to happen. Eventually he dropped it and tried being nice to me. Didn't work. The kid was a real piece of shit. Anyway. A few years later. I went to the Yankee candle store at the mall to get my mom a candle for Christmas. I'm waiting in line. And the guy working the register looks familiar. Took a few minutes to place him. Then I realized who he was. When I walked up I kinda smirked. And when he took my debit card to swipe it and saw my name, the look on his face was priceless. Guess he didn't think he'd be recognized in a different town working a shitty job at 22 years old for $8 an hour. It was sweet. The kid I hated most in high school was named Ryan W. A true jackass. Aside from throwing food at our lunch table nearly every day, he threatened to kick my ass on more than one occasion. I always had to run. Like the time at a party where he busted out this giant monkey wrench and started wrecking the host's house with it. I was next and was literally chased out of there. Anyway. Many years later. I still wish I could get revenge. Every few months we somehow cross paths at some party or event. He is unfortunately friends with friends of my friends. The closest to revenge I came was when we were hanging out. The 6 of us. And I had brought acid for me and my friends. It wasn't planned for him to show up. Although I had plenty enough to share. I made sure to divide it up into 5 so that he couldn't have any. He was pleading and really wanted in. Had been talking a long time through this party about how he wanted to, before I had revealed I had any. It felt good to be like, sorry dude. Fuck you. I'm still waiting for the day I can humiliate him though. The way he did to me. Watch your back. Ryan. My mom treats me worse than my younger brothers. And it eventually always bites her in the ass. My favorite is the time she saw it coming. See? When we were teens. My brothers were always allowed to borrow my mother's car. But I wasn't. My grandmother even warned my mother that she would need me one day and I'd tell her no. Mom blew her off because why would she need me? And it's not in my nature to say no. Fast forward a few years later when I have a car and my mom gets into an accident that leaves her temporarily carless. Mom never asked to borrow my car even though she wanted to because she knew I had every right to say no. And she admitted it and apologized because she screwed herself over not being nicer to me as a teen. The thing is, it's not in my nature to say no. If she had asked, I would have said yes. Her guilt was the karma. My college roommate secretly slept with my boyfriend while I was at class for a year. I routinely took more than a full course load and was in math science classes or study groups every morning. One day I walked in on them screwing when class was cancelled. Moved out. More angry at her than heartbroken. Lost most of my friends through the breakup. Fast forward 5 years later. Those two throw a crazy expensive engagement party at the guy's parents' beach house, attended by some still mutual friends. She caught him boning one of the waitresses for the catering company in a bathroom before the toasts. They still got married. Like OP. I feel a little bad for her despite the karma balance. She feels like she can't do better than being with a cheater. He is rich. Though. I dated this girl for a year or so. She broke up with me and immediately started dating another guy. I went to talk to her and he basically told me look, she wants to be with me. I have a job and she needs someone stable in her life. You're a loser. His job was as a line cook and he was in a band part-time. Real career prospects. About a week ago I went to a friend's house to play poker. We acted like men and just pretending like nothing happened. He got kinda drunk and asked me what I do. I graduated college and make very good money as a consultant for a very large and well-known company. I ask him the same. He is going to truck driving school. And she is pregnant. His baby, second baby of his by second girl. Feels good bro. JPG. To all these hater responses. The type of job is not the point. It's that he can't hold a single job down for longer than a year or so. Also, they aren't together anymore. She already has a kid. She is preg with his kid. He has a kid. They were engaged and she left him. BC he actually is a loser who can't keep a job. Family karma here. When I was about 8 and my brother was 11. He got in trouble for punching a kid in the face on the school bus. My brother claims he was defending someone else. I don't really remember it all that clearly. My brother paid the price. Was banned from the bus for a while. Faced repercussions at school. And my mom made him apologize to the kid he punched in person. A couple of months after the incident, the mother of the kid he punched decided to flip the crazy switch and sued my parents for mental anguish, claiming that her son now had crippling emotional problems stemming from the incident. She showed up at board meetings, tried to get my brother expelled, painted a picture of my family as shady and my brother as a delinquent and violent. My parents ended up escaping the legal battle with a little bit of dignity intact, but feeling ostracized in our community of 90 people. Fast forward. I'm now 27. My brother is 30. My mom sends a newspaper clipping to him in the mail. It's the indictment of the crazy mom from our childhood. Come to find out, she had been embezzling money from her employer for 5 years, totaling more than $50,000. May have taken 2 decades. But she finally got what was meant for her. TL. DR. Brother punch kid. Kid's mom sued my family for mental anguish. 20 years later, kid's mom goes to jail for embezzling. When I was about 12, my older sister began dating this guy down the street that bullied me a lot. I absolutely couldn't stand this prick, but was always afraid to stand up to him because he was older, bigger, and stronger than me. On a hot summer day, got to be 115 degrees plus where I lived at the time. I came into the house to find my sister and the bully on the couch. I asked them if they wanted any ice cream while I was up. They both said yes. So I scooped them out some vanilla ice cream into 2 separate bowls. Before I scooped his ice cream, I rubbed the spoon all over my sweaty balls and literally scooped sweat off from my grundle. Then proceeded to scoop his ice cream for him into his bowl. I gave them their respective bowls, making sure I put the gooch spoon with his bowl, and left the room with the biggest shit-eating grin on my face. Sometimes revenge truly is a dish best served cold. Growing up with racism definitely isn't the easiest thing in the world. Aside from being bullied yourself, you have to deal with the fact that your siblings or your friends have to deal with the same shit. You don't deserve it. Nobody deserves it. But it exists. I imagine seeing that bully as a complete wreck was one of the greatest moments of your life. Unfortunately, not everyone gets to see their childhood tormentors later down the line. I'll tell you this though. I felt fucking amazing when I stood up to my bully in grade 9 of high school. How did I do it? I don't remember, to be perfectly honest. All I remember was a snarky racist remark. Shut up. You're, insert background. You don't have the right to speak. That's when I lost it. I mostly remember grabbing him by the shirt and then throwing him against a wall. Once he was pinned against the wall, I alternated between punching his face in and making sure he stayed against the fucking wall. Details are mostly lost to me, but I definitely remember winning that fight. I was suspended for the rest of the day. He was suspended for 3 days due to the racist nature of his remark. Possibly one of the greatest turning points of my life. I was a really small freshman in high school, like 5 feet 2 inches, and looked like I was probably 12. I was always picked on for being the smallest. I transferred to a private school and fast forward 3 years and I go to a party with all the kids from my old school. I see one of the kids that always had it out for me because he was bigger at the time. I'm now 6 feet 1 inches. Obviously a lot bigger than before. So he talks some shit to me and I give it back. He shoves me and without even thinking I one-punch code this bag in front of about 80 people. Everyone thought I was a fucking hero and then smoked some bowls with old friends. Great night. It's been 6 years and counting since this dumb girl from high school threatened me with text messages and then broke into my house and stole everything of monetary and sentimental value to both myself and my mother. She never saw any kind of legal repercussion or faced any consequences. I'm still waiting for her to die in a fire or lose her job or something. When I was in 5th grade, there was a kid who spit on me and bullied me for about 2 months on the bus. When he moved to another bus route I thought I would never get a chance for revenge. But one day at a little league baseball game I was playing in, I saw him on the opposing team and my blood started boiling. He was the second baseman and he would laugh whenever I would go up to hit the ball. In the last inning, I was up to hit and missed the ball twice and heard him laughing from second base. That got me really mad, and when the pitcher threw the ball I hit a line drive straight for the bully's face. After it hit him, he dropped and cried and the players ran over to him. But no one called timeout, so I ran all the way to third base without getting out. I sat there on third with a huge smirk on my face while they picked him up and walked him to the dugout. I didn't feel bad about it all and still don't feel bad about it. A guy I went to high school with friended me on Facebook. He was caught stealing from my house once back then, bragging about it to mutual friends, whom he thought would not tell me. After the incident we never spoke, although we had the same circle of friends. I kept my distance. He kept his. Flash forward 20 years to now and we were friends on Facebook. I have a pretty cool job in the music industry. Good money and I travel the world. I usually add these former friends just so they can see my life turned out pretty awesome while most of them are in our old hometown working shit jobs. Anyway, he updated his status saying that he was devastated that someone stole something from his son and karma this. Blah blah blah. Amongst all the posts from his friends being sorry for him, I simply wrote something like, yeah, it's really terrible when someone steals from you, eh? That must really suck. Karma does have its way of evening things out though. I immediately started getting PMs from mutual friends congratulating me, who remembered the incident in school. He unfriended me after that to my extreme pleasure. TLDR karma eventually 20 years later. In 8th grade, age 13-14. This kid threw a wooden block at me. Probably thinking, oh, let's pick on the punk girl. That'll be so hysterical. I blacked out for a good 10-15 seconds after it clocked me in the head. When I came to, he and his friends were all on the ground laughing at how funny this was. I ended up having to go to urgent care and not participate in gym class for a few days. His mom was on the school board and had a large role in the financial decisions of the school. So the administration was afraid to punish him and did nothing. My math teacher was this kid's football coach and made him run extra while everyone else got to take a food water break. But that was the only justice I got. Fast forward 2 years. Everyone is freaking out that this guy can't play football for the JV team that year. He ended up spraining his back and breaking a few ribs from a drunken escapade into the woods the week before his sophomore year started. And the concussion that he sustained from this was severe enough that a second concussion could have caused serious mental damage. 2 years isn't that long of a time. But considering there were witnesses and the kid should have been arrested and suspended at the very least, it seemed like a long time. I befriended a larger red-headed girl when I was in grade 3 or 4. She was new to the school. Everyone had their own friends and no one accepted her. I didn't have many friends, so I gladly accepted her. We became best friends. Fast forward to middle school. She was still large but got boobs and wore makeup. So she became popular. I was still a way too tall and too thin awkward girl with a lisp. Everyone made fun of me and she joined in so she could be cool. It got worse and worse until she started instigating it. Would circle beat me with other girls and egg my house. Fast forward again to high school. I filled out a bit and got better friends. About halfway through grade 11 people started realizing how mean and fake she had become and turning on her. She was crying in the hall one day and I went up to her, asked if she was okay and offered my phone to her if she needed to call her mom. She transferred schools for grade 12 because she was being bullied. Funny thing is, I still feel bad for her. Bullying sucks. TL. DR bully was shitty. Eventually became bullied.